The sky over the small town of Rosewood was a pale wash of dawn as Staff Sergeant Daniel Cole stepped off the Greyhound bus. He was early, too early for anyone to expect him. No parades. No balloons. No welcome signs. Just a duffel bag slung over his shoulder and a silence that wrapped around him like an old friend. After 3 tours overseas, Daniel had learned that surprises weren't always a bad thing. But this one, coming home unannounced, wasn't just for him. It was for her. His little sister, Emily. She was the reason he enlisted in the first place. After their parents died in that crash, she was all he had left. She was 16 when he left. Now 21. Strong. Smart. Or so he hoped. He hadn't heard her voice in weeks. The messages had stopped. Her replies grew shorter. And something in her last voicemail, "I'm okay, really, don't worry about me," felt rehearsed. Off. Daniel walked the familiar cracked pavement toward the house they grew up in. The porch light was still on. A shadow passed behind the curtain. He knocked twice. No answer. Then the door creaked open. Emily stood there in pajama pants and a long-sleeve shirt, her hair pulled into a loose bun. Her eyes went wide with shock. "Daniel?" she whispered, barely breathing. "Hey, Em," he smiled. And that's when he saw it, the thin line of purple beneath her eye, just barely hidden under smeared concealer. A fading bruise on her wrist. Another on her neck. His smile disappeared. "Who did this to you?" Emily froze. Her lips trembled, but no words came. She shook her head, looking down, ashamed. Daniel's voice softened, but there was steel behind it. "Emily." She stepped aside, letting him in. The house smelled different. Stale. Heavy. He dropped his bag and looked around. Holes in the drywall. A cracked photo frame. The couch cushions out of place, like they'd been thrown. "Where is he?" Daniel asked. Emily's eyes flicked to the hallway. "Gone." "At work," she whispered. He doesn't mean to. It's just when he drinks, he gets." Daniel wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close. "No one ever means to hurt someone they love," he said. "But that's no excuse. You don't have to live like this, Emily." She sobbed into his shoulder. Hours later, after she'd fallen asleep in her room for the first time in days without fear, Daniel sat in the living room. The soldier in him calculated every possibility. But the brother in him knew the best weapon right now wasn't violence. It was protection. And a plan. The next day, Daniel went into town. He spoke with an old friend who now worked at the sheriff's office. He met with a lawyer. Called a shelter. Then, he called someone else, a woman named Mrs. Rivers. She ran a community group for women in crisis. Her husband, a retired Marine, ran a gym that doubled as a safe space for teens. Daniel made arrangements. When Emily woke up, he took her for coffee. "I want to help," he said. "But only if you're ready." She stared out the window. "I used to think love meant staying, even when it hurt. That maybe I could fix him. That if I just tried harder." Daniel reached across the table and held her hand. "You don't have to fix anyone. You just have to choose yourself." Emily nodded. "I want to leave. I want to feel safe again." The night her boyfriend came back, he found the house empty. Emily was already gone. She was at the shelter, safe and surrounded by people who cared. Daniel stood on the porch, arms crossed, waiting. When the man stepped out of the car, his swagger vanished at the sight of the soldier in uniform. "I'm not here to fight," Daniel said. "But I'm not going to let you hurt her again." The man muttered threats, but Daniel remained calm. "You'll find a restraining order on your windshield. Violate it, and I'll be the last person you'll have to worry about." He turned and walked away, never looking back. Weeks passed. Emily began volunteering at the center that once gave her shelter. She started taking art classes, smiling more, laughing again. Daniel stayed in Rosewood longer than he planned. But every time he saw her healing, it felt like coming home in a whole new way. One afternoon, Emily gave him a drawing. It showed two children, one shielding the other with outstretched arms. Behind them, a shadow loomed, but the light was stronger. At the bottom, she'd written, "You were my safe place." Daniel's throat tightened. "I just did what big brothers are supposed to do," he whispered. "No," Emily smiled. "You did more. You reminded me I was worth saving." A year later, Emily stood on a stage, sharing her story at a town fundraiser for domestic abuse survivors. The crowd applauded. Among them, Daniel stood proudly, tears in his eyes. In a world that sometimes turns away, one soldier reminded his sister that love isn't supposed to hurt, and family doesn't walk away when things get hard. Because sometimes, the quietest heroes don't wear capes. They just come home, without warning. Let this story be a reminder: if you or someone you love is suffering in silence, speak up, reach out. There is hope. And help.